Hello guys. Time check. It's March. Date check. March 2024. And we are going for our CELPIP exam over here at BITS in the Northeast. Waiting in 1 month and we're preparing for our PGWP/PR requirements. Hey guys, welcome back to what's happening this season. I know I've been gone for a long time. It's been crazy. It's April 6, 2024, and a lot of things has happened already in our journey so far here in Calgary, Alberta. But what I wanted to share with you today would be all about your English language proficiency test for an express entry profile. And that's because I am nearing the end of my study at Bow Valley College, the end of my 2-year diploma program. Woohoo! Now, okay, so between IELTS, CELPIP, I believe those are the two language proficiency tests that are accepted when you are making your English express entry profile. If there are more, you can research that. But what I would like to share with you is our experience, mine and my wife's experience, because we took the CELPIP exam last March 24. I just booked it, I think, 2 weeks before that at BITS, BITTS, BITS Testing Center over in the Northeast, I believe. So since we live in the Southwest, it was about a 25-30 minute drive. The reason why we booked it there, because a good friend of ours also took their CELPIP exam there, and they had a good experience. There were a lot of people when they took the exam. However, for us, there were a lot of people. I think we filled up the room when we were there. It was a Sunday as well. So we booked it 2 weeks ahead of time, and of course I'm just looking at my iPad where I listed stuff. The cost as of now would be 294 Canadian dollars per person. So it's a pretty hefty sum that you have to pay, and that's why I'm here to give you tips and strategies to make the most out of your CELPIP exam. Okay, so if you never had English proficiency exam like the IELTS or whatever, basically this tests your English skills in 4 key aspects. This would be listening, reading, writing, and speaking. Okay, so we did do the IELTS before. I think in 2020 when we were making our initial express entry profile. However, an express entry profile only lasts for the English exam only lasts for about 2 years, the validity of the results, and then you have to retake a new one. And since we are going to be applying for express entry, we're going to be making an express entry profile, we figured it's time now to do the CELPIP exam. The CELPIP is designed specifically for Canadian English. I'm not saying one is better than the other. You might meet people who will say that IELTS is easier than CELPIP, CELPIP is easier than IELTS. Personally, having undergone both tests, they're pretty much the same. It tests the skill, the questions are similar, there's no easier one. Okay? Your experience may vary if you've done either one before or both, but at least from my perspective and my experience, it was the same set of questions. Now, I did receive an average score of 12. So I had 12 in listening, 12 in writing, 12 in... what's the other one? Oh my god. Speaking, and then lower score, a 10 in reading. 10 in reading, why? Because I get pretty bored and uninterested and sleepy when I read stuff that I'm not interested in, and I'll let you know why. But overall, I got a 12, which is the highest score that you can get for a CELPIP exam. For the IELTS, it's a band 9, I believe. I also got a band, I think either 8 or 9 in IELTS 4 years ago, but mostly because I am pretty comfortable speaking, writing, and reading in English. So in terms of what to do during the exam, when you go into the exam room, they're pretty strict, or the exam area, they're pretty strict. At least for the BITS testing center, you have to leave everything, even your phone, and it has to be turned off. You're gonna be leaving it in a locker that they have inside the testing center. The only thing you can take with you when you go to the exam room would be a few things, but you'll be having the key to the locker with you. So the order of the exams would be listening. At least that's how I got it, was listening, reading, writing, and speaking. I believe I did the speaking last. So I'll give you tips for each section. For listening, this for me was pretty easy, especially because being almost 2 years here in Calgary, almost every interaction you have with everyone else is in English. So you are already trained if you are an international student here in Canada. And what happens is that they will play a recording of, and most of the videos that I've watched on CELPIP and IELTS and the people I've spoken to, it's mostly you're going to be listening to two people at first in a retail conversation. So what's important during the listening process, you also watch a video, by the way. So there's a listening portion where you're just listening to purely audio, and there's like a video portion where you get to watch people talk. So for both portions of the listening exam, they will give you like pieces of paper and a pen, because you can't bring any inside, and you have to note down what you hear. Key things to note down when you do the listening portion would be, who are the people speaking? If there are names, write them down. What their roles are. In my case, it was a salesperson and a customer. Write them down. What are they talking about? If there are different options, for example, if it's a retail or a sales transaction, write those down. You will be asked questions about the transaction itself. In my case, there was a question with a multiple choice question with pictures of which product did the customer ultimately buy at the end, which was surprising to me because the photos looked similar to each other. But then that's why you have to take notes. Again, if you really want to get the high grade for your CELPIP, which contributes a lot to your CRS score, literally take note of those things. Now for the video portion, I followed a video guide that's in which they say that even take note of what the people are wearing in the video. For example, let's say someone is named Mary and she's wearing pink, write it down. Oh, sorry, you will also be given most of the stuff here will be multiple choice, and you have to do that. So key thing for listening, write things down, maximize the use of your notes. If you run out of paper, you can always ask them again for copies. So to wrap things up for listening, practice active listening. Even when you're like during the practice phase, not just during the exam, listen and take note of details. Watch videos, take notes, practice that way. You also have to manage your time effectively. When the audio plays or the video plays in the exam, I think it only plays once. You cannot go back to it anymore. That's why your notes are the only thing you can go back to. So make it very detailed as much as you can. Use shorthand or symbols or examples, right? If they say photo or picture, maybe just write pic, or use an ampersand when you write in. Those things, it will save you time while you are taking notes. And practice for each exam aspect. Just practice, right? So next we're going to be moving on to the reading section, which was the most boring section for me, because they gave me an article which is all about organic and non-organic farming in Canada. So with the reading section, there will be other stuff, like you're going to read an email, you're going to read communication pieces, and you're going to be asked multiple choice questions. But for me, the difficult part about the reading section was a multi-paragraph article, again, about the organic, non-organic farming thing. And then the questions were Like which part of this, which paragraph talked about so and so, which paragraph talked about, or which paragraph would you find that the government is likely to invest in blah 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 blah. So when you read, when I read that article the first time, I was like, oh my god, I have to pay more attention, because I just skimmed through it again. But I would advise you to skim through it initially just to know where those questions are. So how I approach it, I looked quickly at the paragraph, what it's about, to get a sense of what's about, then looked at the questions. I think there were about 10 or so questions, so that I could, when I read it the second time, I will be kind of more aware of what I want, what I needed to know to answer the questions effectively. So skim through it, scan through the questions, and then identify with what are the main ideas and what are the details supporting it. Because for me, for example, in that article, there was a main idea, and then after that, the succeeding sentences had the supporting facts, like figures. Like for example, they say today, and this is just my example right now, like today is the coldest day in Calgary. That's the main idea. The supporting fact would be it is 10 degrees colder than the coldest recorded day in 2014, whatever, for example. So find those things, utilize those context clues to understand what each message is saying, and also if there are words that are outside of your vocabulary, combine the question and the passage to give you a context or contextual understanding. That's called context clues, to make you better understand what that unfamiliar word is. So for the reading section, again, take care in reading through or skimming through the main article. That will be my tip, and then looking at the questions as well, because if you just read through it thinking that you can just guess the answers, it's gonna be difficult. I found it difficult. That's why I only scored a 10 in that section. For reading, how to prepare for that, read articles that are not also in your areas of interest, and then try to summarize what it says afterward. Like if you really want to score well, I'm not saying I did this, but read an article and try to write about what the main points are. Just bullet points, so you know that you understand better. If you have a spouse, maybe that's something you can practice together for reading. For the writing section, so full disclosure, I do write a lot for personal hobbies, and I did have a long stint as a copywriter, and I do work in marketing with a lot of ads, content, and stuff. So writing for me is one of the things I love doing the most in my life since I was a teenager. So writing comes very naturally to me. But what's important for writing, because when I did the exam before that, I just watched a YouTube about their experience, kind of like what I'm doing right now. For the writing portion, there was only 2 things they asked me to do, which is similar to what the other vlog I was watching. So number 1, they will ask you to write a formal email. So if you've been working in corporate, or if you've been writing emails before, it shouldn't be that difficult for you to do. Just remember to address the person there, dear hiring manager, dear whatever. If the name of the person is that you're writing to is given, then do that. Structure the body of your message very, very well, and then don't forget a sign off at the end. One of the things that are easiest to do is best regards, or yours truly. Do those things, because an email is a formal piece of business communication that you have to prepare for it. Read a few templates of what a business email is. The introduction is at the start, like the greetings as well, and then like the talking about the problem in the middle, and then at the end to summarize or have a conclusion. The other writing test question given was a survey, so that it was asking feedback from me, from the perspective of me as a customer. So I wrote it without having an address portion like hello, blah blah blah. There was nothing like that. I just wrote it as if I was writing a questionnaire. I didn't even sign off like blah blah blah, love Julian. I wouldn't say love to anyone on the survey, but it was just the answer. Tips for writing, organize your ideas well. Okay, it's sometimes people get challenged in knowing where to place their ideas. It's like group them together. Introduction is the introduction. Greetings are also in the introduction, where you will be introducing also the subject of what you are talking about. In the middle, write your experience or the main message that you want. Let's say you're writing an email as a formal complaint. Put in an introduction that I will, for example, this is all about a situation in which I experienced this unpleasant situation at your store in May, for example. That will still be at the start, and then in the body of your message, that will be the details, and at the end would be the action that you want taken. 3 paragraphs would be a very simple way to approach it. Also avoid typos by rechecking your work. Avoid grammatical errors because it's also part of that. So be wary of your pluralizations, where you have to use S, where not to use an S. For writing, keep it at 119 to 200 words. I believe it caps at 200 or so, or it doesn't cap. It just says maximum for 200 words. But I think that you can go 10% under or 10% lower. For myself, I just kept it at 190 to 200. It never went past 200. That's for writing. For speaking, I know that a lot of some kabayans or Filipinos or some international students are very conscious about speaking in English. For me, the best way to practice speaking in English is literally practice speaking in English. If you're like me and you have kids, and my kids unfortunately do not speak our home language or our native tongue very well, but they do speak English very well, converse with them about a lot of things. Tell them about your day. If you have a partner, a spouse, a friend, talk to them in English. I know that since this vlog is geared towards international students or immigrants to Canada, make it a habit to talk in English more, even at home, right? And then if you have, again, a partner, a friend who's also taking their English exam soon, just be open to talking in English and be open to having constructive criticism shared between the two of you. The only practice that you can do literally for speaking is to practice the English language. Now, for tips about that, because what will happen during your test is you'll be given different situations, I think 3 to 4, in which you have to read like a very short instruction and record. I'm not sure if this is what happened to me, but for example, the instruction is your sister joined a singing contest. Your dad says that she sings horribly and is convincing you, as her brother, as her sibling, to convince your sister to back out of the competition because she's gonna feel embarrassed. While your mom says for you not to discourage your sister and for her to just do what she wants. So that's so random, right? So the way I did my speaking test, or the way I would do it, is I assumed the persona of the speaker. Literally, I thought of, okay, I'm the brother of the sister. So I talked very casually. I was like, hey sis, I know that you're so excited about joining that singing competition, and I know sometimes you get not that confident about your voice, but I believe that you will have a great time in that competition. Mom and I and even dad are here to support you 100%. So do whatever you want to do, follow your heart, and win it. That's how I answered the speaking tests, very casually, as if I was speaking to someone who plucked me off the street for a conversation. But again, the irritating or annoying thing about the acoustics of the place we had a test, we were basically seated beside each other with just this much space in between, and you could hear people in the room. So what I did, right? So let's pretend this remote is a phone. I spoke in a lower register and just did this because I wanted to make sure that my voice was being captured by the microphone thing. That's for speaking. Okay, some general tips for the test day itself. So prepare yourself for the exam. Some of you may feel very confident about the exam. Some of you may feel nervous. Some of you may feel indifferent about it. To be perfectly honest, not bragging, I was not concerned at all because again, I'm very comfortable in the English language. It's not my first language. I'm not the best at it, but I was not worried about taking the exam. And I think that's also one of the things that you have to be gearing towards, even if you're not that confident in speaking English. The day of the test itself, I recommend that you not worry about things. Do not cram because you might be more stressed out during the day itself. Take a long rest. The day prior, for us, we scheduled our exams at, I believe, 8:30, and we had to be. We scheduled our exams for 9 or 9:15, and the email we got from the testing center said that we had to be there 45 minutes early. So we woke up very early for that, had breakfast and stuff. There again, I mentioned there's a locker, so don't worry about bringing stuff in because they will give you a key. Another thing would be to follow the instructions that they give you, whether it's when to use the locker. Because the first thing that it said to us was sit down, and then we saw other people putting stuff in the locker. Those who were taking the IELTS, because we were taking CELPIP, so my wife and I, we put our stuff in the locker, and then the dude said, "Don't put stuff in the locker unless I tell you to," and we were like, okay. But we never got the things out because it was there already. But anyway, don't follow us in that regard. Bring water. Oh my god, I did not bring any water during the exam. They will only allow bottles of water though that are clear. So you can't bring like your own bottle of water if it is colored or you can't see the water inside. So do that. The test can range from an hour and a half to 3, I believe. Personally, it only took me like an hour and 20 minutes, but I'm a fast test taker. Any test I've done, as long as it doesn't involve numbers like accounting and economics in my current college program, I breezed through it. Like I finished pretty fast. The next person who finished after me was my wife. It took her like almost 2 hours to do, and we never saw the other people after. We stayed there for 5 minutes, but the other test takers were not yet done. So I'm not saying for you to do your test fast, but make sure you have enough water for the duration of the time. Expect to be there for a long time as well. In terms of like recommended study materials, I think the best thing to do again would be 2 things. Number 1, watch YouTube. Watch a lot of YouTube. Watch people who have already taken the test and have scored highly. Just kidding. No, I scored a 12. I scored an 8 or a 9 in IELTS, I believe. Maybe 8. So this time I perfected it. But watch people who have recent experience. So if you're watching this in 2024 or maybe 2025, yeah, I think this is going to be a good resource for you to watch again. But if not, if this is 2026 or longer, dude, find a more recent example. And number 2 would be to use the official study resources. So when we did IELTS before, they had an IELTS app, and the British Council was the provider, in which they had an older version of the exam or a mock exam that you could do. Like I did it on my iPad. They had their own audio recordings that you could do. It was scored as well. In CELPIP, although I never did it the last this time around, they also had like a mock exam or education references, but use those. And if you feel like you need to supplement or add to that, then that's the time you find other material. If you're really struggling with the language, maybe you can also consider enrolling for a tutorial or language instructor. If you're confident with English, I would recommend you not to. We did enroll in a 2-month course before for IELTS, and after attending 3, we didn't go back again because, to be honest, it's pretty basic stuff if you already are very fluent in the English language. So those are the tips I have for taking the IELTS or CELPIP or whatever English exam you want for your express entry profile purposes. There are, again, just a recap, there are 4 aspects of the test: listening, reading, speaking, writing. Not sure of the order, but I'm pretty sure the last one was the speaking portion for us. Book your exams early, maybe a few weeks in advance, so you can also prepare and file a leave, or maybe fix your class schedule around it. Know when you're going to be off for that. It's going to take you, like, again, 3, 4, 5 hours, or half a day already, basically. I really cannot emphasize the importance of practice, whether it's for listening, speaking, or writing. Do that beforehand to the level that you are comfortable doing. Now, why is this CELPIP or an IELTS exam important? Because it can contribute a lot to your CRS score. If you're the main applicant, for me, my 12 rating in CELPIP was equivalent to 128 points for the CRS. While for your spouse or your partner, they can only contribute a maximum of 20 points to your express entry profile. So even if you're a single or a solo applicant, if you max out the 12 like I did, that's 128 points, and the cutoffs these days are more than 500. That's basically more than 1/5 of a grade that you will of the CRS score. So it's really important to do as well as you can and as well as you want to for your English exam. So there we have it. That's what happened this season of spring, even if it's still snowing right now in April 6, 2024. And again, I'll try to be more active. It's been really difficult to do this vlog with all of the new things that has happened recently. Got another job, so I'm working 2 jobs already. More of that next time. We have a new house. That's why you see this. Maybe a lot more on that in the future. And yeah, catch you next time.